All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to yet another Conversations on Vitality. James Gardner, as always, Ariel Jarvis. Ariel, welcome, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Happy fall.
It feels like it, huh?
I
Woo!
know.
Here we are, the Monday, first Monday of September, and it feels like fall already, 100%. Well, here we go today. As promised, gang, over the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about the 11 body systems that we have to deal with and on a day-to-day basis. And obviously, there's a lot to understand, a lot to learn in terms of getting our bodies to run optimally. And today, we're going to dive into the cardiovascular system. So, Ariel, take it away.
Yes. So, first of all, I think it's important to know what the cardiovascular system is comprised of. So, you've got your capillaries, your arteries, your veins, you've got your heart, you've got your vessels. The vessels are some are really skinny, some are really big, some are very sensitive. So, we want to take into consideration that these are all little pipes and pathways. And
Mm,
just like, your plumbing or your pipes, you don't want them to burst and you don't want them to get plugged up. And what people don't realize is that you are in control of your cardiovascular health because of your diet, water, exercise, and sleep. The four pillars that we keep hitting home.
right.
And so we're going to be able to talk about the fundamentals of the cardiovascular system and what do you do if you are diagnosed with a disease or illness or a condition where now you're on blood thinners or you're on medications, what to do so that you can have the best quality of life and not be imprisoned by all these lists of pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So let's dive in then. You know what? Okay, let's go. What's the biggest, what's the most fundamental cardiovascular component? Let's start there. Let's boom.
Well, think about this, for example. We're all born with about 6 football fields of something called endothelial cells. And just by diet alone, by the age of 25, you have 1 football field left. So these endothelial cells literally line the cardiovascular wall, vessels, arteries, and capillaries. And through our diet and electronegativity transfer, so positive, negative charge transfer, acid, alkaline transfer, right? The more acid you put in the body, the more it rips off those endothelial cells. And then your body will put cholesterol to patch up the job. So it's kind of like mudding your wall. You have a bunch of little holes from your diet and now you got to go back and put mud and sand it. The problem with that, though, is when it's internal, when it's in your cardiovascular system, we're not very strict with our diet and we're not
Hmm.
very aware. And so what happens is a weekend bender or a couple too many drinks or a couple too many starchy foods or fatty foods or deep fried foods or processed foods, the list goes on. You'd be surprised how much in one day you consume and your poor little endothelial cells are being destroyed. And so your body's putting cholesterol down, and this is creating so much plaque within your body. And eventually, it will catch up with you, and that's why it's the leading cause of death in North America.
I I want to go back to a fact because it was so mind-boggling. 6 football fields of these cells that we're
Yes,
born with.
yes,
So people out there, football fields, 100 yards. It's good area of space times six.
yeah,
When we are 25, the average person has only one football field left of these cells.
yeah,
And the cause of that is diet.
yes.
It's mind-boggling.
I know. Like people don't realize. Yeah, like literally let that sink in for a bit.
I know. Like it really is. It's a powerful statement. Uh, anyway, not to dwell on that because it's kind of it's
It's
just
interesting.
it is. So diet alone. Now, here's the thing. I know we're going to have a conversation, but in terms of this one specific, these cells, is it possible to reverse at 25? Can we then by age 30 get 2 football fields back? Can we go the other way here?
The beautiful thing is your cells regenerate.
Okay.
So when you stop harming them and you actually give them the building blocks they need to create more healthy cells, you can regrow cells back. So I want you to think in terms of like the periodic table, right? So I'm going to take you back to Chem 11. The periodic table, we have most of the elements on the periodic table within our body. And so everything is broken down. Your food, your macronutrients is broken down into a positive, negative charge. Mm-hmm. So depending on the interaction that your body has with those foods, it will either repair and create new cells or destroy those endothelial cells. Right? And so the more cells you destroy, the more underactive that body system becomes, and the more of a domino effect it has on the other body systems. And eventually something will go and something will collapse.
And so ergo, the reason why it is the leading cause of death in North America.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of things that can go wrong from this in the system itself.
And I find the system really tries to overcomplicate it. They almost try to make it where it's like they victimize you and make it like it's not your fault. You did nothing wrong. There was nothing that you could have done to prevent this. And I want to give people back their power and let them know that it's not about doing something wrong. It's the fact that my people perish for lack of knowledge.
That's important.
And it's very important to be empowered with information and knowledge so that you know exactly when your body's giving you these signs, what to do and how to combat it so that you can regenerate your cells.
Okay, so obviously cells, we start there. We have obviously the heart itself and the myriad of things it does. Let's talk about the heart for a moment. Let's talk about that. So what do you see with a lot of patients that come into the clinic in terms of overall heart health?
Well, a lot of my patients forget that your heart is a muscle and that it's connected to a bunch of vessels that run a fluid through it called blood. Now that fluid is 92% water. So what I'm seeing is a lot of patients are on blood thinners because they're not drinking enough water. And their medical doctor will not tell them to drink more water. And if they are drinking more water, then they're not drinking the right water. And what people don't realize is your heart is a muscle. It runs on voltage. It runs on electrical current. That's why they use the defibrillator to restart your heart using electricity, right? To use electricity when your heart stops. So why would we be drinking dead water when we have a living heart that requires electricity? Water actually conducts electricity when it's in a negative charge. Negative charged water conducts the heart. The heart is a muscle that creates a circulatory system to pass oxygen and rich nutrients and red blood cells and all that good stuff to the rest of the body as the transporter of nutrients to allow just a basic ecosystem within the 11 body systems to function properly. And so it's very, very important that you understand that not all water is the same. There was actually a study done in 2009, and what they're discovering is that there are plastic particles found in human blood now because they're drinking so much bottled water.
Yeah.
And bottled water is actually a positive charge. And so this is very dangerous because it's actually creating blockages within the different areas of the cardiovascular system. And we also want to take into consideration that water is it's like a powerhouse. So it's something that's actually going to clean the cholesterol off your endothelial cells, and it's going to dilute the blood, and it's going to break down any sort of acid waste or toxic buildup. You can't do that with just diet. You have to do that with the right water. And then in terms of your diet, well, not everyone should be eating the same. So if you're somebody that's not an athlete, you should be having a low carb diet because carbs can create sticky blood, more glycogen, all that fun stuff, right? So just something to take into consideration.
Yeah, I think you had said once too, the heart is designed uh, to work properly for 120 years. Is that what I remember? Something
Yeah,
like that.
so your heart is actually, you're supposed to die based on your heart stopping. And it's supposed to stop, it only has so many pumps, like heartbeats per lifetime. And so you actually should only live to about be 120 years old, and that's because your heart will literally give out and stop beating.
Okay.
Yeah.
And obviously, then everything that we're talking about minimizes the life expectancy of the heart. You had mentioned what I want to talk next is about sticky blood, because we hear that a lot. I know that's something you see with some of the protocols that you put your clients through in terms of the sticky blood, um, because it's a pump. It is a
Yeah.
muscle, and just like a just like a pump out in the back pond, when the water's not clean, the pump engine burning out, and we have to replace it, right? So sticky blood. Just talk on that for a second. Tell us what it is again. Tell us the before and after that you see, specifically with your live blood analysis, because I think that's really a very cool thing.
Mhm. So, two things with sticky blood. What you're consuming is too starchy for the fluid to dilate. So now it gets clumpy. The red blood cells start to clump. When they start to clump, the surface area is no longer exposed. So nutrition can't come in and toxins can't come out as effectively. And you start to develop poikicytes and ReLU. ReLU is when all the cells are clumped together. And so
Mm.
they're forming like almost like a train, right? And that's really, really not good. And then poikicytes are almost like these little toxins that get on top of the cell. And now all the good nutrition can't go in the cell and the toxins can't come out. And now you have underactive cells. So this is really bad in terms of that's what's transporting information to the rest of the body. So now you have toxicity running through a highway and being transported and donated to areas of need.
Mm.
So I want you to think of this. You have a starving island, and all of a sudden a helicopter comes in to save the day. They've got water and food. All the food has been poisoned. All the water has been poisoned. So is it really helpful? No.
Right.
So when you have sticky blood, what people don't realize is two quick things. One, let the water do its work. Let the water, negative charge water, donate its electrons to remove any plaque buildup or any toxicity and increase the pH of the blood. The blood pH is supposed to be 7.35 at all times, no matter what you eat or drink. So most people are not. It's usually
Mm.
below 7, which is quite acidic. So then what happens is your skeletal system, which is a storage of alkaline minerals, has to donate and buffer the blood by sending alkaline minerals into the blood to buffer the blood. And over time, your bone density decreases and we develop musculoskeletal issues.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't want that to happen. We want this to happen through our water and diet. So making sure that you are, for the most part, following an alkaline diet, fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds, and then making sure that you're having small portions. Because if you overload the body system and you eat large portions, what that also does is it creates more oxidative stress, more free radical damage,
Yeah.
right? So small
Yeah.
portions and making sure that you're eating within your pH, eating within
Mm-hmm.
your means, right? Whether you're an athlete or not.
Right. Right. And for anyone out there too that's interested, this is a very simple procedure protocol to go through at the clinic. I've experienced it myself. Just a little prick of blood, put it on a live microscope, goes up on the monitor, and proof is in the pudding.
Yes.
Right. So that's obviously the live blood analysis is one of the protocols that we do at the clinic. Um, so cardiovascular health. What if we can, Ariel? Because it's such a wide topic in terms of different culprits and root causes and things. What are some of the signs that people may have or should be aware of that maybe their cardiovascular systems in somewhat distressed?
The easiest way is actually looking at your eyes. So this is in Chinese medicine called iridology and sclerology. And so what we do is we study the iris, but we also study the sclera, which is the white part. And so someone can take a quick little look at you. Obviously, if you've had enough sleep, you don't have something in your eye, you haven't smoked marijuana, but just overall, a normal person, you can take a look at someone, and if they have red squiggly lines in their eyes, their capillaries are coming up to the surface trying to get more oxygen and water. And so that's a sign of dehydration. Another sign of dehydration would be chronic headaches, menstrual issues, acne, weight gain, mood swings, depression. Depression is huge with cardiovascular and dehydration. Taking a look at somebody and broken blood vessels all over, that's a sign of protein deficiency. The walls of your cardiovascular system are lined with amino acids and with essential fatty acids to create that elasticity, right? Because you don't want the tubes to be too rigid. You want them to be able to expand a bit because the blood's rushing through. Otherwise, they can burst really easily. But what happens is if you're not eating enough protein, you're going to bruise easier. You get a little whack and you get a bruise. That's not normal. That's telling me you're actually probably protein deficient, and you're not eating the foods that your body needs to create a healthy wall of the vessels.
Yeah.
Or low iron, low anemia. Yeah, being iron
What
deficient.
about circulation? Is circulation is a result of cardiovascular system?
Circulation is a result of two things. It can be a weak heart. So the heart, usually people with poor circulation or low hemoglobin, right? So more elderly people. What happens is the blood's moving at a really slow rate because the heart is pumping at a really slow rate because the heart is not strong enough to pump at a normal rate. So it's too slow. And usually that's just from lack of exercise for a long period of time. So it's a weaker heart. And so you want your heart to be pumping, 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 and pushing everything through, working really hard for you. And then circulation can also be a correlation with thyroid function. So cold hands and feet, cold nose, that's a thyroid function as well. Because remember, if the heart's not working properly, the rest of the body systems are going to take a hit. And the thyroid really functions well through ionization, those negative electrons, right? So if you don't get enough, you're going to notice your thyroid taking a hit.
Yeah, and here's a question, and I'll just use myself here as the guinea pig to ask this question. In terms of circulation, specifically, which is interesting, you just said thyroid function. Like there are times when my hands and my feet and my nose are cold, but it's not consistently. It's every so often. My partner makes fun of me because I'm always cold. I'm just always that way. I'm always like, even in summer, I'm usually cold, right? What would be your assessment of that?
Well, based on what I know about you, I would probably just take a look at your carbohydrate load. You might have little blockages here and now. So think of it like a raging river. That's your blood. And every once in a while, a log can get in the way and create like a blockage, right? And so that dam will fill up. So just taking a look at your macronutrients in terms of your carbohydrates so that you don't get a plug. Because every once in a while, we can get a plug in that cardiovascular system, and then the extremities don't get enough heat. It's called your thermogenetic state, which is a thyroid thing. And so certain extremities won't be able to get the heat transferred to it. Also taking into consideration sleep and stress. Yeah,
of course. Okay. We have a question on the board. Christine's asking us, what causes a fib? So I assume that, atrial fibrillation, right?
Yeah, atrial fibrillation. So two things. Number one, so first of all, atrial fibrillation is when you have a high stomach. So we know that our stomach is right underneath the diaphragm, but unfortunately, sometimes what people will do is they will overeat, or they're, they get bloated all the time, or they don't empty their bowels properly, or they eat and then they do things like maybe landscaping or something where they're actually hunched over, or maybe their belt is too tight, so the stomach's up high, all these little things. So what happens is it actually can force the stomach to go up into the diaphragm and get stuck. And then the rib cage can't open properly and breathe properly. And people can have signs of almost like anxiety sometimes. It's very common. And so it's because you have a bit of a high stomach. So now what happens is putting pressure on the upper cavity where the heart is. And so what people don't realize is just by eating smaller and making sure that you're keeping your stomach down, because your stomach's also a muscle, keeping that down, then what happens is you'll create muscle memory, and then you won't have issues there. The second thing is energy drinks and over caffeinating. The third thing is smoking. So toxicity, right? Smoking or too much alcohol consumption and too much EMF, too much Wi-Fi. So using those watches, right? Those people are wearing them all day, all night. So being really considerate about that. And especially if you're someone that's hitting the gym really hard and you have a watch and you're taking pre-workout and you're on steroids and all these other things, then I've seen it. I've seen grown men coming into my office, 29, 30 years old with atrial fibrillation. Their heart has stopped. They've had to be defibrillated and brought back to life. We lost a close friend a couple of years ago. It's just, you never know, right? So it's one of those things where your heart's a muscle, but you don't want to go the other way where you overwork it, or now, it's just not performing properly anymore, and it can give out.
Well, great answer there. Okay, so tying this all up in a neat bow for the community at large, it really seems like we talk about the same thing every week, because it's the truth. I mean, it comes down to diet and obviously the right water, but also nutrition. Nutrition here, in terms of cardiovascular health is super key. Obviously, drinking the right water is super key. Because you always share with us, some little tips and tricks, some remedies or plant-based approach, supplements, things like that. What would you recommend? Is there things that you could recommend out there for our community?
First of all, green inside, clean inside. Your greens shuttle fat from the cardiovascular system. So that's really, really important. If you're someone that's kind of worried about your heart, start introducing grapefruit. There's been so many doctors that have actually been silenced because they will recommend a grapefruit a day after someone has had a heart attack or stroke. The third thing is avoid ablations, any sort of surgeries, things like that. Just maybe get a second opinion. It's not always necessary. And the medical system loves to just open you up and, poke around, and it's not always necessary. So take a look at maybe your diet and your supplements and things like that. Going on something called chlorophyll, it actually cleans the blood, filters the blood. Right. It's really good for cardiovascular cell health. And then making sure that you are getting your protein. So whatever that might be, if it's your almonds, if it's your pea protein powder, if it's your organic tofu, if it's your your chicken, your fish, whatever that might be, just making sure it's a good quality and making sure you're getting your greens. So my standard for a heart healthy diet is your omegas, which is your essential fatty acids, your proteins, whether it's plant-based or animal-based, and making sure that you're getting in your greens, your berries and your grapefruit.
Love it. Fantastic. And that's an amazing thing that we can take inside. And let's not forget, everyone, that the heart is a muscle. And if we want it to also get stronger, we need to work it, meaning we need to get off the couch. We need to get some activity in our lives. So it's a two-pronged approach, of course, and then maybe three with the correct water coming at it from all angles. And obviously, though, such a huge thing, getting back to the most fundamental component is it is the leading cause of death in North America, cardiovascular health. Stats don't lie. So for anyone out there, obviously, we talked a little bit about live blood analysis today. There's other protocols and tests that Ariel can do to determine what is the best course of action for you to get your health back and to live life optimally.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Ariel Jarvis, always a pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much, James.
It was amazing as always. And we're going to dive in next week. We'll continue the body system plunge here, and stay tuned. We will be back next Monday, same time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. All right. Have a great day.
Take care. Bye.
Cheers.